Marketing here on Conscious Business Zone with my friend Jonathan Ellerby. Hi, Jonathan.
Hi, Kathy.
And there's a doctor in the house today. Yay.
There's a doctor in the house. That is true.
So Jonathan and I met when he first came to Colorado and first started working at the Althea Center. He's the spiritual director there. And I just fell in love with this man. He's just amazing. And we became friends. I did some videos for him and helped a little bit. And for those of you that don't know Jonathan, this is one of his books. He's a Hay House author, and he was the spiritual director of Canyon Ranch. He has a very amazing portfolio of things that he's done, and really amazing depth of knowledge that I hope that you'll get the hint of and want more of from this amazing man. So Jonathan, okay, so you're Canadian, and how did you get we're starting at the beginning.
We're going to start at the beginning, right?
Well, it's because too bad I know enough.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I just love for people to know how you started your journey, got here to the U.S., because you have lived in Tulum. You ran a spiritual community there as well. So so you're really a man of North and South America, or the world. So
Yeah.
how did your journey start?
So, yeah, it's interesting. And you and I we've joked a little bit about this, that, depending when and where people meet me, they have very different ideas of who and what I am. And so when people who are interviewing me that don't know me, they often ask, so which is the real you? Or who's the Jonathan Ellerby we have on this show?
Wow.
And I think that there are sort of three facets to my career in the holistic wellness industry, or the integrative wellness industry, that are kind of unique, because I think most people sort of specialize in one of the three. So the first is, let's say, myself as the content provider. So that means the spiritual teacher, the facilitator, the wellness educator, the guy that sort of is the product. And that's, all the books that I have, and that's the website, that's kind of the Jonathan Ellerby brand. But to become that guy, and this is kind of what you were asking, I mean, the reality is it emerged out of my own natural passion, right? And my own natural quest to understand what it means to be a whole human, what it means to be a spiritual being, what it means to be healthy and happy amid these forces. Yes. So that started for me at a very young age, but it moved, I guess, by my personality beyond the direct experience and my own sense of spirituality, which I write a lot about in my new free book, Spiritual Experience.
Okay.
And then it kind of moved into the world of research. So I did a Ph.D. in comparative religion with a focus on healing in cross-cultural systems. So looking at why and how culture and spirituality shape people's transformative process. Now, the interesting thing is that those two things combined opened a third door, which is the real head scratcher for most people, which is that I have made a lot of my career, or most of my living, on consulting businesses.
Right.
And so people are like, wait a second, a spiritual teacher, healing research, business consulting, like, how does that all go together?
It is. It's all the perfect match, I think.
So the business consulting I've done has been everything from, believe it or not, team interlocking accountability for very mainstream companies like Goldman Sachs. That was weird. To product development for companies like Pepsi and Kraft when they wanted to get into healthier products. And that meant both helping them understand what are some of the core ingredients when it comes to developing a wellness product, but also even in terms of marketing and branding, helping them understand the inner world of people. So very much like like an organizational psychologist or a marketing psychologist, and then finally, more specifically, helping to build actual experiences and products. So that's kind of like when I was at Canyon Ranch. I built
Yeah.
their spirituality program. When I was in Mexico, I helped build the concept, the program, the brand for a wellness community. And I think, these three things work really well together, knowing the research, having the experience, and then putting it out in the world. They work really well together, not only because they feed my personality, but
Mhm.
they pay the bills, right? It's kind of hard. It's hard to have a CV that just says, guru. That's like a
Well,
recipe
you're
for
really not a
disaster.
guru. You're not like a guru anyway.
Definitely
Well, one
not.
of the fun things I did with you is we did a event, and I helped do the marketing, and well, I've done several things with you, but the one was for religion, and it was maybe 5 years ago, 4 years ago, where we had Karuna Mai, and we had. Do you remember it? Do you remember?
I know. It was ecology and spirituality. That's
And
right. That's
it
right. That
was
was really
so
great. That was
cool.
a very special event.
And see, you're a futurist. You don't maybe call yourself that,
No, I
but
think that's true.
but and so that's part of my kindred spirit with you, because I feel that business is one of the fastest ways to shift consciousness, because the owner of a business, and any business, touches at least 100 people, if not thousands of people,
Mhm.
and by their statement and their consciousness, they can transform huge groups of people, and by their value system.
Right.
And so I find that business is a spiritual practice, or that's my view of it, and my hope that that's what I'm contributing to. And that's where I saw your light, was that you definitely saw that. I mean, it's practical, but it's more than practical. It's visionary.
Well, I'm honored you would see that and say that, but I want to jump in and just agree wholeheartedly, because what I've learned by exploring the question, what is spirituality and healing right? In relationships, in health, in
Right.
business, in churches, in synagogues, in spiritual communities, internationally, what I have found consistently and surprisingly is that the business community is actually the most fertile place
Right.
for this wedding of spirituality and healing, which is really, sometimes those words are a turnoff for people, but it's about being healthy and happy, right?
I don't think it's
It's
a turn
about
off.
having the energy you want to do what's important, and that is important to everyone. And the reason why it excels in business is because business is the most agile setting
Exactly.
for moving consciousness. I've worked as a lecturer in universities. I mean, universities are as slow to change as any institution. I've worked in hospitals, right? I've even been employed by hospitals. Same thing. I mean, it takes a year to launch a program. A business that sees an opportunity and wants to make it happen for the benefit of their clients and the improvement of their brand, we can do something in a month, right?
Right.
And so that's, I think you think you're right on. It's why it's exciting, and in the end, I think you also highlighted it's not just good for the bottom line because it serves people better. It meets the wholeness of who they are better. They feel known by the business that serves them. Uh, so it's good for the client, but it's also good for the business in terms of its culture, its performance, and its business outcomes. So it's so interesting how well we share this vision, and I think more and more people are waking up to it. And I
Yeah.
actually have to say, I think that the pandemic situation is inviting a conversations that used to be fringe conversations and are now becoming mainstream conversations. And one of them is, has our business culture made us more vulnerable as a society? or and does business need to become more savvy about connecting people and creating more resilient communities? Because those that can do that will not only be seen as allies in times of uncertainty and change, but could actually thrive in these moments of uncertainty and change.
Exactly. I think that what we're seeing now is a huge opportunity to shift and to go to a more team model. And the team model is totally based on relationship.
Right.
And any relationship starts with relationship with self and then others. And so that's where I wanted everyone to know about you and your services, that you as a teacher, as a guide, as a mentor, as an incredible author. Your writing is just beautiful. This is just one. He's got lots of books in, and he's offering, Jonathan is offering a free book
Spiritual
on.
experience. You can find the link on my website, and that's no strings attached. Now,
Right.
Interestingly though, Kathy, I want to jump in on something you were just saying about teams, but then I'm going to find a funny way to connect it with the book Spiritual
Okay.
Experience. So some years ago, when I was in healthcare, I was the director. I was the first sort of founding senior director of a movement in a city in Canada. And we were a healthcare organization that had 30,000 staff. We had
Wow.
130 sites of care. We had 9 hospitals. And I was the first director of organizational development for the whole thing, which was insane, right? I mean, I was just young and stupid enough to take that on. Long story short, the consulting team that I found to help me create what we envisioned as a team-oriented empowerment model that can work at any level of an organization and not necessarily top down and not rely on buy-in and all that stuff. Well, the organization that I brought in, as I got to know the president, turned out to be one that was
Someone asking.
deeply embedded in the business world, had nothing spiritual about it on the outside. But
Oh,
as I got to know this man and understand his success, his name's Mark Samuel, I realized that it was his deep personal spiritual work that enabled him to be so sensitive to people, intuitive with people, to be able to keep people accountable and deliver difficult messages, but in a non-confrontational way that they could hear.
yeah.
And so it was really this match made in heaven. And so where I want to go with that is to say that what I saw thrive back then, which is now, well, like 20 years ago. I can't believe I've been alive that long.
Yeah,
So
that's
20,
about
20 years ago, it's exactly, the secret to our success. And eventually I left to join that consulting firm. And the
oh,
reason why is what you're talking about. What they were built on is the notion of interlocking accountability, that when a team is built on the consciousness of we first, not me. So it's about helping people move from a me consciousness to a we consciousness. And that when one thrives, we all thrive. It pulls down the silos. It empowers collaboration, removing roadblocks. The whole thing moves quicker and faster and more efficiently. And your point, I think, is that really this just emulates the way things work in spirit, which
right.
is that we are interconnected, that we are interdependent. And any model of human activity that doesn't honor that is really not sustainable. And so moving deeper into the question, well, what does it mean to be a spiritual being? And what are the laws of spiritual life? And how can we benefit from spiritual practice to empower and enhance our everyday work and relationships suddenly becomes a very, very vital conversation. So the
Right.
book, as an example, the book Spiritual Experience, is very specifically focused on spirituality, not business, not relationships, and so on. But the ultimate goal of the book is to show people that we are all having spiritual experiences all the time.
Right.
From simple synchronicities to mind-blowing psychedelics. Um, the human animal is built for the invisible world. It's built for the spiritual world. It's built for energy. And
Mhm.
as we become more comfortable with those things, we can show up differently.
Right.
We take things less personally. We're more attuned to other people's feelings, energy. We are more comfortable listening without taking things uh, in a reactive way. And
Exactly.
so really we find that this once considered uh, left field, metaphysical,
Mm.
luxury topic, I think we're discovering today is
Is
the most important topic on the table. And it's about health, it's about economy, it's about politics, and it's about knowing that we are more than what we have and what we do, so that we have enough consciousness and mindfulness to engage these things purposefully.
perfect. Perfect. And I would agree wholeheartedly. At 20 some years ago, I ran a division at Arthur Anderson. And
Oh yeah.
I left to create my own consulting company afterwards because I could see that you really don't hire those kind of consulting firms if you really want all the best, most innovative, creative solutions. And the competition within the organization.
Yeah.
But what I was part of was the change enablement group, which is what you were doing, which was HR. So it's operation, the FEs of
Hmm.
everyone. But what I'm seeing is that this capacity right now, and what I want to highlight with you is your creativity, because you are an amazing creative force. You're using spirituality how I think it's intended. I think what this whole ascension process is doing, and we're on the pause before the reset, is allowing us to clear these triggers that we have. And it's really misunderstandings that we created as a child of how the world works.
Hmm.
And then once this all clears, then we show up in a kind, loving way to
Hmm.
everyone, because they are, I mean, this really is a oneness practice that we're going through,
That's it.
right?
That's it.
Right.
Yeah.
So what would you say? Now, first I want to acknowledge that we have Charles is here, Don's here, Joanne's here, Puria's here. Hi, Puria.
Hi, Puria.
Noelle and Bob, Olivia, Trish. People are asking about politics, but I don't want to go there quite yet. But I'd rather
Okay.
talk about, if we could we talk about how people, as they're clearing their stuff, because everything's being revealed right now, where everybody's seeing, oh, I don't know why I triggered. They're seeing the relationships at home. If they've got, I mean, you've got a small child, and it's your house. Yikes. Yeah, it's got to be like how the chaos, and you have to work on staying centered. But
Yeah.
what would you say about, oh, and Harlan's here again? Thank you everybody for coming. Please ask questions if you have any. This is a great resource for you guys. Jonathan's just a divine being. What I would like to talk about is trust, because that's the one
Oh,
I'm dealing with. So work on me. No, but
yeah.
I'm not alone.
Boy, oh boy. I mean, I don't know if there's more you want to add to that, but trust, I could just jump in right there.
Please do, please.
So there's a lot to say, and of course we're not going to suddenly break into a workshop for several hours, but I think it's frankly, not to falsely flatter you, it's a brilliant topic to identify. I think that when people talk about fear in the world, fear-based decisions and so on, I think we all kind of intuitively and in some cases practically get why that's a problem. We don't want business decisions made out of fear. We don't want leaders leading out of fear. We don't want the consciousness and energy of fear in our relationships because it is a contracted consciousness.
Uh-huh.
It engages the most limited dimensions of who we are neurologically, right? So we're not in our frontal cortex. Fear pushes us back into our reactive kind of limbic region. It doesn't feel good energetically to be around, even if we can mask it. So on every level, I think we either explicitly or implicitly understand the cost of fear. But what does it mean to live in a healthy relationship to that fear or to live beyond that fear? So a lot of things are sold with a kind of language and branding that suggests that we can become fearless. But I think that's a bit of a deception, right? It's a promise that taps into our pain and presents something that sounds almost too good to be true. So the real question to me is not how do you become fearless? How do you live with fear? How do you become courageous?
Exactly.
Because things are going to keep changing and things are going to keep getting uncomfortable and things are going to keep being presented and taken away from us. And the heart of courage, you can go a lot of different directions with that, but the heart of a kind of sustainable, peaceful, centered, clear consciousness at the heart of what appears courageous is trust.
Right.
And as you also mentioned, part of where our trust breaks down is that we have been deeply, deeply, deeply conditioned to believe some very, in my opinion, inaccurate and unhelpful things about trust. So can we quickly do some of that?
Sure, sure,
Yeah.
sure. Of course.
So the first thing is the illusion that trust is about anything other me and my relationship with myself. So the minute you think it's about, well, do I trust my government? Do I trust my healthcare provider? Do I trust my partner? Do I trust my business? The minute you actually think there's someone else out there who has to earn your trust, work for your trust, you're sunk. Why? Because they're going to break it. They're going to. If they're human,
Right.
they're going to make decisions, small ones or big ones, that are going to break that trust. So it doesn't mean don't trust people. It means understand that trusting is more of a verb than it is a noun that you arrive at. Now we have, I'm looking for an object here. Look, now we have trust. You passed it to me and we have it and let's protect it. It's fair that we feel that way. It's fair that we think that way because that's what life has taught us and told us. But all of that is rooted in an identification with the conditional self, who I want to be, who I thought I was going to be, my roles, my externally formed idea of myself.
Okay.
But when we start to evolve trust to be a new relationship to vulnerability, a new relationship to life, a new relationship to spirit, then we realize that there is actually only one trust relationship in existence, which is me and whatever you consider to be our higher power, God, spirit, energy, consciousness. And in that, you then need to ask, can I trust whatever can I trust God? Can I trust life?
Yeah.
Now, the answer to that question is tricky.
Yeah.
If you ask from the conditional place, the answer is no. You cannot. If you ask from the heart, if you ask from the soul, the answer is absolutely. Because when you ask from the soul, the real question is, can life always enrich me? Can life always show me beauty? Can life always show me love? Can life always lead me to something greater? And the answer to all those things is yes. And in that way, you can always trust life. Life, whether you consider this natural selection, whether you consider this magic, miracles, or metaphysics, life is literally designed for the soul's blossoming, for the heart's blossoming, for the elevation of who we are internally. And in that way, that relationship can never be broken.
Right.
But we are human. We are here for relationships. We are here with our bodies and our brains. And it's very natural and easy to have the fear response triggered, to have our primary relationship with spirit interrupted. And then we unconsciously start pursuing trust elsewhere in conditional environments and contexts that we have no control over. And thus the spiral begins again. I'm seeking control, I'm seeking safety, I'm seeking trust in environments where that's really not the appropriate language or goal.
I see.
So then I have to catch my breath, return to my practice, return to my true identity and the only relationship that matters, and trust blossoms again and again and again. And the most painful thing, and I'll just sort of stop with this because there's so much to say on this topic. The most painful thing is that to feel, to truly integrate and feel the innate and ever-present trust that lives between us and life, we very often have to have it taken away in all the other areas of our life so that we, for lack of a better word, are forced to see it and find it where it is unshakable. And I'll tell you, I don't mind saying this in an interview, especially with you, Kathy. It's not like my life was always a perfect dream. I mean, I've had a lot of great success and, all these books that I had with Hay House, things were growing really well. And then we went to Mexico and I, helped build that project and then hit like some real serious challenges. I got divorced. The company was not everything I thought it was. The owner, I'm not going to get into that, but had a lot of sort of secret partners and agendas and things that made it not what it was seem. I ended up leaving this multi-million-dollar project destitute with owing tens of thousands of dollars. But in the moment, what I was challenged to face was whether I still trusted.
Right.
And the simple answer was, it depends. If you're asking me, do I trust in life, God, spirit? Do I trust in the universe? Absolutely. Do I trust in people? Well, that wasn't really the issue in the first place. Clearly, it didn't go the way I expected.
Right.
But that's fine, because if my energy was in things being the way I wanted them to be, that would have been a devastating time. But instead, my trust was in spirit. So when it all fell apart, I just said, all right, I trust you. So what's this all about? When we live with trust and relationship to life as our primary focus every day, then what emerges is a consciousness of curiosity and learning, healing and integration. And that will serve us in every area of our life. So don't get me started on trust. It's huge. It's huge.
Well, it's what I needed. Thank you. I'll probably listen to this recording again because
Me too. I'll be like, what did I say? I need to hear that too.
So I want you to know, Don Lynch asked, does truth equal trust?
Oh, what an interesting question and way to ask it. So I'm not, but this is a terrible way to start this. I think that every author has strengths and weaknesses, myself included. So there is something I love from every teacher, and there are things I don't love from every teacher. I want to say that because I think that Ken Wilber spoke to this topic decades ago, really in a very smart and clear way. And I prefaced it only to say, I don't think that means everything he says is the
Right.
gospel.
Yeah, no kidding.
Right?
Yeah.
But what he pointed out is that the word truth is really a word that is better, and I don't know if he still feels this way, but it's an empirical word that is too often misused in
Mm,
settings that are not empirical. And so truth is a more materialistic kind of concept, and truthful is more of a personal experience.
I see.
So in a court of law, is it true you were there Saturday night? Yeah, I mean, that's kind of a material fact. You were either there or you were not there. And so in the human dimension, it's either true or it's not. Do
Right.
you have 5 apples to sell me or not?
Right.
I have 1. So true, not true. It's not that I'm criticizing the use of the word. I think it's fine, but I'm pointing out that you're really digging at something very important. In the spiritual, the psychological, the emotional realm, a possibly more useful word is truthful, because it's about a feeling. Is it truthful?
Perfect.
Does it resonate? Does it feel authentic? Those are hard things to quantify empirically, because all it takes is one person out of a million to come up to you and say, I disagree.
Right. Right.
Right? Compassion is truth. Love is truth. That is true for
Those
me.
are values. Those are people's value. They're their operating system, their guidelines for how they live in the world. So that is
Right.
their truth.
Right. So what I'm saying is that even though I do feel, as his question suggests, that as you come into relationship with what you might call the ultimate nature of reality and the design of life as it is, the
Mm-hmm.
truth, the way, the Tao, whatever you want to call it, then trust naturally emerges. So I think embedded in his simplicity, that is the answer, and that
Okay.
is true for me. However, we must remember to be cautious with our language around this, because that's, the ego just loves to jump in on anything that sounds controllable.
Yep.
So let me just say one last thing in response to that question and comment, saying the same thing differently. I absolutely experience that there is an embedded design. You throw something up, it comes down, right? There are simple laws of physics. There's actually not that many of them. There are simple laws of biology. There's actually not that many of them. But in this reality, they are non-negotiable. And anytime life collaborates with them, then things sustain,
I see.
things find balance. And
Stretch.
when life resists them, when you try to go up, when everything's pulling you down, when you try to swim against the current in the ocean, when you try to pretend that human beings can transcend nature, even viruses and hurricanes and tsunamis, I mean, you'll find out the hard way
Yeah.
that in this domain, some rules or laws of the design will always persist. Now, what that points us to, both biologically and spiritually, is that there is a kind of subtle archetype or architecture to life.
Hmm.
And that is true energetically. That is true emotionally. That is true psychologically. In fact, a lot of Kathy's other guests are great masters of the architecture of energy and, emotion and so on. And so in a parallel way, as we bring more levels of ourself into harmony or accord with the design of life, or what maybe is implied as the truth of life, the way of life, the more resilience, the more joy, the more beauty, the more trust emerges. And I would conclude by saying, at the heart of discovering that design is absolutely an experience of pure trust. And
Perfect.
I never thought of it before And actually, as I think about it, Kathy, I have to say I can feel it like a lump in my throat. That might be the greatest gift of
Yeah.
all my study and practice and everything I've been through, which is that no matter what's taken away, I just trust that everything will be fine.
Perfect.
And at the beginning of this year, before the pandemic set in, I was getting ready to do a big relaunch of my brand. We had a travel company. We had all kinds of work and income lined up, pulled away.
Yep.
And I kind of laughed and just moved on to the next thing. Like that was it. So
Well,
it's
you're
a really
creative.
good topic.
It's a creative impulse for you, though. When somebody
Mm,
does that, you go, okay, so what do I do now? I mean, you don't stop. A lot of people stop and they're almost paralyzed by change. In
yeah.
fact, you thrive on change, and you're a great example of that for all of us.
So, Kathy, that's so smart to point that out. Let me just add something then. So yes, we have different personalities. So self-knowledge is really helpful because then we can understand whatever your system is,
Yeah,
Enneagram, right? Like, oh, I'm driven to seek peace. I'm driven to seek perfection. I'm just driven by change and creativity. It's good to know yourself so that when these unexpected transitions in life, love, work, health arise, we can not only slow down and stop to keep our relationship with spirit or life first and central, but we can have enough spaciousness that we can observe our reactions without entertaining them as true.
right, right.
That's very important. The other thing, though, that this
That's
brings up,
beautiful. Oh my God, say that again.
well,
That's beautiful because that's the misconception is that your hologram is the hologram.
right now, here's an interesting little. So I want to get back to a point that I didn't get to, but
Right.
you're calling out something else, which is none of this is about becoming unemotional or disconnected. We are here to be connected, emotional, relational beings. Now, the catch 22, and this is a whopper. I really believe this is big, and I think you got it. Is that the emotional system in the human being is designed to feel permanent, personal, and pervasive. And that is functionally necessary so that we get up and we look after our jobs, we look after ourselves, we look after our kids or whatever. There has to be a mechanism that keeps us engaged with life. Otherwise, we are literally sociopaths. That is literally the definition, right? But we have to learn that even though it feels permanent, personal, and pervasive, oh my gosh, this always happens to me, that's not true.
Right.
It's just a mechanism to move energy and keep us engaged. And that when uncertainty and instability arise, there is a deeper place that we can go to, that we are actually more than our minds, our bodies, even our emotional conditions.
Mm.
When we go into the heart of spirit, or whatever you want to call it, soul, authentic self, spiritual consciousness, there is a capacity to not only observe the self and see even our own reactions and beliefs arising and falling just as everything else does in the world, but we can also listen for a kind of guidance, intuition, and creative force that is not even our own. And so, going back to your point, yes, some people are going to hit that stuck moment or that pain moment. They're going to be able to take the breath, but then they might freeze there. So, the opportunity is to work with your mind, work with your awareness, work with your emotions, step back far enough to lovingly objectify them, but not from a place of disconnection, from a place of deeper connection. and realize that even when you don't have the energy to move, when you don't have the solutions to move, when you don't have the creative energy to move, life does.
Right.
Life, for billions of years, life proves that wherever it can create, it will. Wherever it can thrive, it will. Crack in the sidewalk, I'm doing it. Right? Birds nesting in buildings, I'm doing it. And even in this time of pandemic, we're hearing all kinds of crazy stories, some of them not true, but of quiet, a month of a parking lot, a building, a park having no human interaction. And we are seeing the evidence.
Right.
Life persists.
Right.
And so when we face the opportunity for business innovation, relationship innovation, or self-innovation, the real place that excites me, as you can tell, is to actually find your true self and go beyond it.
Perfect.
Don't stop with what is my passion. Don't stop with what feels authentic. I'd say you want to figure out who you really are so you can toss that out as well.
Right, right. Well, it's all about keep learning, keep growing, keep experiencing. And the other thing you mentioned is I think that what we've been taught to, at least I feel I was taught to, was just get over it. You have an emotional thing and just roll up your sleeves and get over it. And now I'm finding if I just experience it and then breathe through it and go to a different presence, then all that energy, because you don't realize how much energy you're using to resist or to cover or mask or whatever you want to call it. So, I want to welcome Hogan here, and Elsie, welcome, and Shirley, welcome. So, and if you guys, and Elaine, I'm sorry I missed you too. If you have any questions for Jonathan, please, this is a rare treat if you have questions.
So, Kathy, while they're thinking if they have a question, I want you again, you highlighted something so important about emotions. So here's a little tip that I always like to share, which is, life is very, this life we're in, this human world, it's full of opposites. It's full of things in tension. It's part of what creates our physical universe. It is also true in our inner world that there are polarities, and that means we can hold things in accord or alignment with the truth or the design of the universe, or in resistance. When we understand, like what you were talking about, how to feel our emotions and experience them fully without reacting from them, they are there to help us with evaluation and elevation. In other words, there is energy locked up inside us, and emotion arises to show us that. Right. Maybe it's about healing an old wound. Maybe it's about letting go of a fixed belief. But whatever's going on, there is energy locked up in something that is not fluid. And so when we feel it, when we allow it to move, we learn about ourselves and we progress. Now, the point of my mentioning polarity is when we resist emotion, repress emotion, neglect emotion, it's the opposite. It creates confusion and stuckness, the opposite of when we let emotion move through us. And one of my great mentors always said, feel to heal.
Right.
You don't have to do anything else with it. Just feel to heal.
Yeah. Okay. So I have another question for you real quick, and then I definitely want to make sure that we talk about your free gift, your book.
Yes.
But because of your incredible scholarly background, like what I know from you from here, would you say that I'll just make a statement and then see if you agree is the best way to explain it. Oh, and I have this too. I have the Althea Center card in here. Would you say that we're in a renaissance because it feels like we're coming out of this dark ages of the corporate mentality of profits are the most important, and um, uh, that humanity has fixed systems that do not serve that we know that other people can make decisions, da 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 da, which I think is the dark ages. It's feudalism, basically, is what we're seeing. And, and now we have this time period that we're sequestered inside, and a lot of people are doing inner work. I mean, big work. It's been amazing watching people evolve. Do you find that, because you've studied all the ancient spiritual texts, and we're in a cycle, we're in that 26,000 year cycle, 25,000, I don't know, 25, 26,000. From your studies, do you feel like we're in this new, it's almost a renaissance is what I'm feeling. Do you see
Yeah.
that? Or,
I mean, the short answer would be yes, and then maybe I can make some sort of broader comments, both academically but also personally. So it's interesting. When I opened the Dow Center in Mexico, we had a launching event on the solstice of 2012. And I was speaking and hosting the event with Don Miguel Ruiz, Alberto Violdo, and Greg Braden.
mhm.
And one of the things that came up, and these are legendary people. I mean, I was
Right. I've worked
like,
with Don Miguel.
yeah, such a beautiful soul.
Yeah.
So what came out of the conversation was a pretty, unified feeling, or more than a feeling, unified recognition that traditions around the world, from East Indian, Hindu tradition, to Lakota tradition, to Mayan tradition, to modern channeled metaphysical traditions. There's no question. There's no question. There is an uncanny, perennial teaching that there would be an age of revelation.
Wonderful.
Now, a couple of interesting things about that. First of all, and I talked a lot about this at Easter this year in a video that's recorded on the Althea Center Denver Facebook
Okay.
page. And then
Okay.
I also have a summary on my own Facebook page, which is Jonathan Ellerby, Ph.D. And the idea is that I think even the Christian tradition was unconsciously embedded in the same projection or prophecy, that when Jesus, in the mythology of his life, and by that I mean both literally and metaphysically, took the crown, the corona, and the cross, and was said to be a foreshadowing of a time where he would return. I don't think it's a small coincidence that this tradition, as well as all these other traditions, have pointed to a moment where the two worlds would merge. So this is the cross, which is the horizontal world, that is the feminine, earth-based, indigenous consciousness, that is
Uh-huh.
the axial, aspiring, hierarchical, transcendent focused reality. We would have to come together. And I'm not particularly big on using Christian tradition in my teaching, but it is a funny coincidence that this cross metaphor is most meaningful at this moment in history, the merging of two planes, vertical and horizontal, literally at the time of the crown, the corona, where every country in the world is actually talking about the crown.
Right. Right.
So in all these traditions, what they have in common is that there would be an emerging new way of being. Now, let's move on and take one more step with this. A lot of the scholars of this kind of prophecy, and Greg Braden being one of them, have
Yeah.
said, okay, folks, yes, a new time is coming, but when you get to the edge of darkness and you begin the journey back towards the light, if you're at the edge of darkness, it's still going to be dark before you get back to the light, right? So if you had to hit that extreme wall through a time of darkness, it will take darkness to return. So none of them said, oh, 2012, everything's going to be a cakewalk. It's the turning of a cycle. Now, having said that, let's get back to the gentleman's comment. I'm sorry, from Don's comment.
Uh-huh.
You know, I think what we're discovering in a simpler way of saying it, prophecy or not, mythology or not, scripture or not, we are simply realizing, as I kind of mentioned earlier, if we don't bring our life and behavior into alignment with kind of the laws of the universe, and I don't even mean that in a super conscious way, but just the importance of collaboration, kindness, connection, thinking of future generations, we're not going to make it.
Right.
We're just not going to make it. And we know we were told that before pandemics by the leading council of scientists in the world.
Right.
So absolutely, we are in a very, very fruitful time, and it doesn't mean everyone gets it. And it's very clear if you turn on the news that some world leaders who will remain nameless are very much still invested in division and divisiveness. And I think that serves a purpose, because for those of us that need to be motivated to do it differently, to embrace what we know, what the truthfulness that we feel of the unitive nature of consciousness, we can't, this is not the time to rest, right? This is the time to live it and commit to it in every moment of our lives and in everything that we do.
It felt like as soon as all of this hit, it felt like, oh, okay, well, this is what I came here for.
Yes.
I mean, that
yes.
exactly, right? So it was like, okay, how do I serve? How can I help people get their stuff out in the world? How do we get the new leadership, new knowledge, new potentialities? So we could keep going on that, but I want to make sure we have time for you to talk. I did put the link in the comments for your book, your free PDF. Could you talk a little bit about your spiritual book?
Yes, I would be happy to, because I can see we're just coming up to the hour.
Yeah.
And I know we both have commitments. So I thank you for squeezing this in. So the book that I just released is called Spiritual Experience. And it's about how to, I think it says, how to understand and harness the 7 super states of consciousness. And it's really like a very fun adventure into a lived description of each of these 7 states. So what I do is I describe what it's like to feel it, to experience it, to have the experience yourself, so you can recognize it, so you can reflect on it, so you can know when it's happening, but then move into the reflection on, so what? So what does it mean when your week is full of synchronicities? So what does it mean when you have a dream that comes true? So what does it mean when you stop on a hike and all of a sudden everything feels like a universal concert playing in harmony together? How do we take those moments and turn them into lessons that change practically, meaningfully, who we are and how we are? And it goes from the simple to the sublime. And I think, to your point about Renaissance, I think it's a very important age as we become technically and digitally saturated, that we invigorate and commit as much to that which will never be replicated on a screen or with a device. This is the moment we must remember that there are some core essential qualities to being human that cannot be replaced. And all the fear of AI or digital dependence must be balanced with the simple reality that our intuition, that our emotion, that our energy, that our ability to access unseen worlds is very real. And that only when we reclaim that and reinvigorate that will all the materialism and technology come back into harmony. Because it's not just about controlling those things, it's about reclaiming what has been diminished and lost.
Beautiful. Oh, that's so beautiful. And then I also saw that you're doing a 90-day class. Is that still available?
You know, we're just about to run, and we have only 2 seats left. It's actually now an 8-week class,
Okay.
and here's why. It's really funny. Before the pandemic happened, 90 days was a very generous class, and we offered it at a third of the price. But as people were signing up, what they were saying was, now that the world is on its head, we don't know what's going to be happening in 90 days, and we don't know what's happening with our work or our families. Could you make it more intense and shorter? So it's going to be 8 weeks. Every week for 8 weeks, we meet for 2 hours live in person. It's a small group, and we will really explore what is this new way of living. What does it mean to live from the heart of spirit every day with everything we face? And it's live, it's interactive, it's customized to the group. It's not a canned program or recorded class. So thank you for asking. And by the way, if you download the book, you will naturally get an email offering you.
Okay. I'll go do that. I apologize. I didn't get to do the pull down the book and read it before the conversation,
That's
but
fine.
I
That's
learned
fine.
a lot. Thank you so much. So you can see, everyone, how important Jonathan's work is as a resource for you to be able to navigate this time. What you'll find is that his way of communicating is so heart-centered that you find a resonance with it right away. So there's a recognition in your being of
Mm.
what he's saying. And so he's one of my favorite teachers. I
Mm.
highly, highly recommend his work. And you can see why he was the spiritual head at Canyon Ranch, and then ran a spiritual center and started it from scratch in Tulum, and now runs the Althea Center, and then also does all these other classes and works with people. So you have the opportunity to work with him one-on-one, or to follow him through some of these classes. And you can reach him through jonathanellerby.com. Is there any other way you'd like them to be able to reach you?
Yes, thank you. Before I depart, I wanted to say that I have been doing, since the beginning of the pandemic, every day at 12 o'clock noon on my Facebook page, Jonathan Ellerby, Ph.D. I've been doing a live teaching, and it's called the 12 at 12. It's about 12 minutes at 12 o'clock. And it's basically about what you said, Kathy. How do we understand the practical applications of oneness consciousness as we face times of uncertainty and change? And we've explored everything from grief to loss to death to nature to motherhood to relationships and managing change. And so there's a whole library of videos free. And then you can also join me today. Actually, after what I do after this, I'll be live again. So hopefully
Yeah.
we can all stay connected. And I would always be happy to answer your questions
Oh,
and be a help.
well, everyone, you can see, I do take advantage of his Facebook Lives. They're fantastic. They're not too long, so you can get a quick
So
inspirational boost, I guess, is
yeah,
what when I watched them, I felt so much better afterwards. So I really think that what you're doing is a gift. Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you
thank
so
you very much.
much. And
I'm grateful to everyone for being here.
I look forward to seeing you again when we're out of jail.
Yeah, me too. Lots of
Thank
love to you, Kathy. Thank you very much for this.
you. Bye, everyone. Thank you for coming.